Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hello and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I am your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, and I am so excited to have Amber Griffiths with me today. As you can see, she is the maker of legends. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Amber is a maker of legends. Yes, really. She is also a brand strategist and Moxy Amplifier. She guides committed people like you to not just leverage their brand, but to strategically take it to an entire new stratosphere in reach, connection, and revenue. Doing so provides next level experiences to move everyone from the unknown past unique to legend. With more than 20 years working with legends and legends in the making, Amber shows you how to take your undeniably greatest asset, you, and highlight in ways that ignite business while creating experiences that are unforgettable. Well, that sounds super exciting, and I can't wait to hear more about that. And of course, I just told everybody about you, but I would love to hear in your own words who you are, how you came to be where you're at today and started doing brand strategy.
Oh my goodness. Well, it all began when I was very young. No, I was going to be a pharmacy technician is actually where it started. Uh, those things that you think because you're good at them, then you should totally do them. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, wow, no, never mind. This doesn't actually light me up the way it should,
Oh,
the way it could. I think I just
yes.
need to take a slight step to the left, up and over to the left. So I don't know all of what you want to know.
Well,
Did the school thing, loved it.
yeah.
Was the VP of marketing for a large real estate firm, which sounds really impressive. It was a really fancy title,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. I think that I'm one of those that was born to be an entrepreneur. I think we all are, but that's a different question. That's a different
Yeah,
conversation.
we'll get to that.
I've been doing this for about 20 years and I'm loving it. There's been for sure different iterations over those 20 years,
Yeah.
plus the part in corporate. But my favorite part still is the people, the stories, the watching people go, but this is what lights me up. And you watch their eyes start to sparkle and their whole energetic, their aura changes. And I love it. I still love what I do this far into it. I can't believe this is my job.
That's so awesome. And it's so important. Brand. It's so important because somebody could have a great service or a great product, but not have the right branding and it not be, identifying with who they are. And so it's not going to sell as well as it could. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I started in real estate, and what I think is the funny part about that is because I was in the marketing department, they would come down and they're like, "Oh, I already have my brand." I'm like, "Oh, awesome. Let's talk about that then." Well, but I have this brand because I'm a part of Prudential or I'm a part of Berkshire Hathaway or I'm a part of whatever. I said, "You
Right.
and 300 people just in this office have that
Right.
logo. That's not your brand." I think I spent the first several years in business just trying to share with people your brand has so many more layers. There's so much more complex than your logo font and colors. Yes, they are important, but they are foundational, but they're not the end all be all. What makes you you? Why are you so special? What is the experience of you? And that includes your persona, that includes your moxie coming forward, that includes how you're actually connecting with people, the experience they can take with you forever and share so far beyond logo font colors. So yes, take time. What is it about you that's amazing? And that's almost always comes down to how they feel when they're in your presence, how they feel when they speak to you, when they work with you. That is your brand. That's the part that makes you unforgettable.
Right. And it doesn't matter what you're selling, right? It's just
Oh,
you.
no.
Yeah. It's just you.
Your, if you want products, go to Amazon, go to Etsy.
Hmm.
If you want information, go to Google. pick your favorite AI. People aren't buying stuff and things and information. They're buying you.
Yeah, yeah,
They're buying
exactly.
experience with you.
The experience. I was
Absolutely.
just going to say that the experience, and it's so funny you mentioned this earlier that it wasn't your jam. You had started, it wasn't your jam, and then you decided to focus on something that you really love. And I love that so much because I'm actually writing a collaboration piece about that right now. It's a little bit more about accepting, your limitations to discover what lights you up. And it's so funny that you use that exact phrase because I think so many times we're focused on, oh, this is what I should be doing, or I think I might be good at
Right.
this, but not
Right.
really. And then we never find out what we're really good at or what we really love doing. So I love that.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I think it gets taught out of us to some extent. I
Yeah.
think there's like we're young and I think it's part of I remember listening to a comedian say it's why we always ask little kids what they want to be when they grow up. We're looking for ideas. Like we're trying to get something we're because at age 4 and 5, we can do anything. Anything in the world is open to us. And by
Yeah.
the time we graduate high school, we have a very structured, oh, this is what we do. We do the school thing, we get the job thing, we go to work thing,
Yep.
we all do all these things. And I don't think any of us are actually meant to do it that way.
No. And it's so funny. I talk about this a lot. I don't know if you and I talked about this before, but I mentioned this a lot in that in school when we were young, I mean, that idea of born or made, right? Whether we're born, we might see some tendencies as kids, but once we get into school, it's not fostered at all, right?
Right,
Well,
right.
for us, it wasn't.
For us, I was going to say, for my generation, it was
Yeah,
here's the system, go do the
exactly.
system.
You're gonna go to college, you're gonna get a job, you're gonna pay off your student loans, and then you're gonna start making money.
Right,
It just that was it, right? So the idea
right.
of running your own business or having your own company was never even mentioned, right?
No, no.
But now I feel like kids have so much opportunity that it's just, probably
Yeah.
more of a
Oh,
welcome tool.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think they see more of it too. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't remember very many of my friends in high school and even in college. I don't remember a lot of my friends that went, well, this is what my parents do is they're running their own business or they're doing their own thing. And I think with my generation where, what is it, 60% of the US is entrepreneurship or more,
Mhm.
then we get to see it more. It gets to be modeled for us more. So I think that little door of, oh, I could do that. I think that becomes more of a possibility
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. So talk about, like, I hit on it just a little bit, but little Amber,
Mhm.
did you see signs? You said you were born an entrepreneur. You think you were. Did you see signs of that when you were very young? Like things, money making, uh, you know, activities. Like for example, I know, and my audience is probably so sick of me saying this, but I say it all the time. Like carnivals in your backyard, or like selling stuff to neighbors, just trying to make some money.
You know, I don't think that's how my entrepreneurship bug was coming out. I think mine was more an issue with authority.
Yeah,
I
I
think
had that
mine
too.
showed up. I'm like, I'm unemployable. I was taught very early on. I remember I could hear my father's voice question the authority, always question the authority. Um, so I mean that started very, very early on. I think that my insistence on I see how you're doing it, I see how you're doing it, I'm going to do it like this. That came out very, very early on. I'm
Mhm.
child number 3 of 8. So finding ways to do things my way and to stand out and to be seen as an individual and not child number 3 of 8, I think that started super early. Um, Everywhere from this is how I'm going to do the dishes. I have a system. I have a way that this makes sense to me. And if my mother were to come in, I'm like, no, 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 wait, this is a part of that. Then she's like, oh, okay, then this is how I do dishes when Amber's doing the dishes. So something that simple, but it was my way. And it wasn't necessarily always obstinate of now I have to have it my way. But it was, oh, this is my project. You told me the task. Let me do this in a way that lights me up. I'm going to have music behind it. Always there's going to be music when I'm doing whatever it is project. So that absolutely started, age 4 and 5 for sure.
Wow. One of eight, eight. Wow.
8 kids, small
What was
Utah family,
what was that like?
loud,
I can't even
crowded,
imagine. I have only one
fabulous.
brother, so I can't even imagine having that much of a support system. I mean, did you guys all really get along, or were you?
Depending on the day, it you have your typical sibling stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but there was always, and I mean, to tell you a little bit, I have one child. growing up in a house of 8, I have one, because I did not want to.
That's interesting. That's
No,
interesting.
we're not having to. Um, but I think really what it gave you an opportunity to do is to see so many different perspectives, and how even now we'll get together with our spouses, sometimes without. We all have kids, we're all doing the thing, but we were all raised in the same house with the same parents, and yet our view of the world is completely different. Um, and part of it we joke because I was raised by parents in their 30s. The younger four were raised by parents in their 40s. um, there's a 17-year gap between the oldest and the youngest.
Oh,
So
wow.
sort of the parents were completely different, and yet it was still the same structure and it was the same house, like the same four walls. But we have all grown up and just are doing something so completely different. We've moved
Yeah.
across the country. Some people are still there. They've moved and come back, and now they're doing, the gardening, farming, small town thing. Only one of my other siblings is an entrepreneur. No, two,
Oh,
two, two are entrepreneurs. Um, and sort of but sort of also within the structure of, but this is kind of how entrepreneurship is. One of them is a realtor. So it was really, I think music is part of where, because there was always a chorus, there was always harmony. So it wasn't like you could sing a solo, but there was always going to be harmony, and you got to take turns not being in the spotlight. You got to take turns being supportive. So it was wonderful and terrible, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
oh, that's awesome. That's so cool though, especially about the seeing different perspective part. That
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's really, really cool. Growing up with one sibling, you don't get to have that that opportunity.
I can see that. One of my best friends in college had one brother, and she and I would compare notes. I'm like, what's really nice about having 7 siblings is you can totally fight with one of them and still have other siblings that you can be friends with. Like if you
Yeah,
just have the one, it's an all or nothing kind of setup.
right?
Either we're getting along or we're not.
Right? Oh, that's funny. So I'd like to segue a bit and start
Okay.
talking about the branding that lights you up, right? So how did you decide, or how did you discover, I guess discover is probably a better word. How did you discover that that's what you love doing? Were you working on branding prior to working with the realtors? Or was it something that you had done in school or?
Yes and no. I mean, this was back in the late 90s. Let's see, is that right? Mid 90s. And so the school, I took branding. I had a triple major in interpersonal communications, PR, and marketing/branding. And now I can look at that and go, okay, marketing/branding is not a thing. This is marketing, this is branding. And they work together, absolutely, but
Right.
careful, there's a separation. So I took the classes that led me here. Um, but back then it was really focused on logo font and colors. It was focused on tagline. And I think really what happened is, as I got into, I worked at a newspaper company with all these different, because not only were they a newspaper, but they were a printing house. And so these different magazines and different little tiny newspapers would come in and print there. So I got to help create those and produce those and get those out the door. So again, it was like, we're doing this one thing, but there's so many different voices coming into it. So I think I got to have that exposure, that experience was amazing. Like I don't think everybody else gets that. And then to step into the real estate, where I always tell people I never had my license, was never registered, never, could not sell.
I was not a realtor.
I'm not qualified to tell you the price. If you call on a listing, I cannot tell you. Like that was very, very clear to everybody on my department. Like, okay, team, we're not the realtor. Um, but really, I think part of it is because you always have that voice of there's something more. There's something
Yeah.
bigger. There's something more.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, it was more of in my head, because I was trained you go to school, you get a job, you do the thing, you're a great employee.
Mhm.
Maybe you get to be part of the C-suite if you work really hard. So even then, I was hearing this voice: if there's more, I get to do more. I thought, okay, well then work harder. And so they opened up a whole department for me, and they made me the head of the department. And that voice, instead of going, ta-da, you did it, the voice was like, hey, yay, but yay, and there's still more. There's still good stuff out there.
Mhm.
And so I stepped into entrepreneurship. And at the time, like when I first started, I was doing the things I think that looked like I was an entrepreneur. I had a topic, I had a niche, I had a business card, I had given myself a title, but I didn't have a blue ocean. I didn't have very specific ways of doing things. I hadn't fully claimed my voice, and I was still working so hard to hit the more and to be the more. I knew I had legend potential, but I hadn't figured out how to unlock it. And I
Y-
think with most entrepreneurs, that's very common. We
Yes.
start our business, we're going through the motions, we think we're doing the thing, and still there's this, okay, but how do I do this? And I think it becomes because we think we have to do it by ourselves. And legends are not created on their own. That's not how it works. We have to find a mentor. We have to find a community to really help us go, okay, there's all this amazing stuff in here. I have to unlearn all this nonsense, all this negativity, all this, you're not enough and don't, the system. We have to be able to find the right support to get rid of that while embracing and up-leveling everything that is already naturally inside us. And
Right.
that, I think, is that process of, this is what lights me up. This isn't just what I can do well. This isn't just what pays the bill. This is the thing that I can't not do. And that's part of that stepping into legend for me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love that. And I think it's so interesting that you were helping other people find what lit them up, but it took a minute for you to kind of do it for yourself. And isn't that true? It
Oh,
was
absolutely.
like, it's so true. I experience that through myself. I help other people with funnels and marketing, but yet
Right.
I don't have time to do
How's your
my
funnel? How's your
right.
funnels, Anne Marie?
So
What's
it's
your
so
funnel game look like?
it's so it's just so true. And that's I think that's the
Yeah,
giver in entrepreneurialism most times, especially in our industry. And we just want to serve, right? So it's not
right,
about putting ourselves first. So if you could speak to
right.
that a little bit, I would love that because it's so true.
Oh, I would love to. I think that we have, again, part of that system. And for at least my experience was, you're one of 8 kids. So you don't get, like, this is dinner. You don't get a special food. Like, what is served is food. You eat it and you don't throw a fit and you just say thank you very much and you help. Like, there was a system part of that. So I think part of that is that if we focus on ourselves, it feels selfish, which it's not, especially when it comes to your brand. It has to start with who you are and your voice and what lights you, like what excites you in your way of doing it. It has to start with you. And that doesn't matter if you are selling widgets or services or the world. It has to start with who you are and what lights you up and what you value most, who you want to play with. Then you can figure out, okay, well, this is the widget that works best for that. This is the service that works best for that. And then it leads us on to our ideal client. I think that same, we just want to serve everybody. We just want to help everybody. It's how we end up working with so many of those $20 a hard way clients,
Oh,
which it doesn't matter if they're paying you $1 million. It is the hardest $20 you will ever make because every conversation is hard. Every decision takes forever and it makes you, I mean, it should light you up, right? This is your
right,
thing. It should excite you. Even if it's a hard, complicated, really intense, passionate conversation and decision making process, it shouldn't make you cringe when they
right.
call.
Yes.
So our need to serve, our drive to serve is such a disservice to both us and them because we give things that are not ours to give. It's how we end up working in that zone of excellence, in that zone of whatever else, the 4 boxes.
Hmm.
As an entrepreneur, you are meant to work in your zone of transformation. It's beyond your zone of genius. You get to play in that field of, I'm so excited to do this, and I get to draw in people who are so excited to do it with me that this isn't work. This is where we get together and play together for a couple hours and then go do the thing and go change the world. So it's not, I don't know, I think we've been so trained, and it's not anybody who trained us, it's not their fault, it's what they were taught. This is a generational
It is.
conundrum.
And it is. And aren't we the best generation though, honestly? I mean,
So far,
we get to see the best of both.
so far,
Yeah, so far.
yes,
Right.
so far. If
So
we end up being the best generation, Anne-Marie, we have failed. If we do not set up the next, I've talked about this with my partner so many times. We spend all this time trying to make our parents happy, trying to make our ancestors proud, trying to fulfill their whatever. Like, they're gone. They've done their thing. And
yeah,
in
yeah.
my case, like, I'm never gonna do the things exactly like my mother thinks I should. I have given up on that a long time ago, including just having one kid. But I had a really amazing opportunity to make things better for my daughter. I have a really incredible opportunity, and it is part of my vision as I support those and help those people find the ways that they get their voice out there more, then they get to go and impact the generation after them. And that is my opportunity. So it's really, if they're not better than we are, we messed up
We
somewhere.
failed. Yeah, that's
We
awesome.
skipped a step.
Yeah. How old is your daughter?
How old is she? She just turned 13. I've been saying
Oh,
she's 12 for 10 years. She's 13.
so she's at that age where she's, transforming into adulthood pretty soon, huh?
Oh, absolutely. She is my muse. She is my reason for doing things. And on some level, she's my radar. Do you remember MASH? Like
Yes.
the old? Okay.
Yes, of
She's my
course.
radar. She's my conscience. And when I hear my words echoed back in her voice, it's both wonderful and terrifying because I think, what did you say? How did you say that? But when I come out and I'm being frustrated and her first question, well, are they your ideal client? Ah, you and you're right. You're totally,
How are you so
it,
wise at 13, right?
oh, it's just been, I remember a conversation, I think she was 7, and I had been going back and forth with trying to apply for this speaking engagement. It was a big deal for me. I was scared to death. So this has been a few years ago. And evidently I had been having a conversation with her out loud all the time. And finally she's like, Mom, just do the thing. Just submit the application and then let it go. Like, you are so much wiser
Oh,
than I
that's
was at
awesome.
that age and certainly wiser than I am now. Just that energetic drain of should I, shouldn't I? If it's value aligned, if it's aligned with what I want to do, if it extends my vision, just do it and quit him hawing around and wasting time about it.
Right,
So yeah,
right. So what ended up happening?
I applied. Did it. I went to Nashville. I spoke. It was incredible. It was, and I'm like,
See?
if I hadn't just hit the send button, we get so caught up in our head solving those problems of 6 months down the line or even 48 hours down the line that we skip over that part of, so what has to get us from here to there?
Right.
Well, hit send.
Hit send. That
And
is,
then, you know,
yeah,
ask. I remember listening to he was a speaking coach in Colorado, and he said, boldly ask for what you want and remove yourself from the consequences. Ask for what you want. Whether they decide or not, that's on them. If they say yes or no, that's on them. If I don't apply, if I don't put my best, loudest, most purposeful voice forward, they don't even have that chance to choose yes. So yeah, focus in this moment. What do I get to change right now? What do I get to affect right now?
hmm
And then let it go.
I love
Let
that.
it
And
go.
that's a great segue because I wanted to ask you about what you mentioned earlier about how the transformation is after the genius.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm sure people listening might be like, I want to hear more about that. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because most people would think the transformation would have to happen before the genius. So I'd love to hear about that.
I think this is how I would look at it because I know, and I am certainly not the creator of those 4 boxes. Everybody knows the
Yeah.
zone of the different zones, right? Like that's all their thing. Especially from a brand perspective, your zone of genius is all about you. And it's awesome and it's fabulous. And it's that thing that really excites you. And that's wonderful. And it's still all about you.
Right.
If you cannot connect to the audience, if you cannot connect to that, whether that's 1 or 10,000, if you cannot connect with them in a way that they go, oh, well, that felt different, or that makes me think different, even just for a moment, then you're sitting in that zone of genius, rocking the house and being awesome and loving life. And it's all about you. When you can
Right.
step into that zone of transformation where you know that what you're about to do and what you're about to say, no matter who hears it, listens to it, hears about it later, they're going to go,
Ah,
that's your zone of genius. Oh, that's where you really are stepping into that genius or that transformation where it's, I have changed a life. And the people I get to play with, that's really their drive. They want to make money. Yes, absolutely. They want to do all the things. But really what it comes down to when you dig into that 7 levels of why and then you keep going until they cry about it,
mm,
they want to make something better. They want to have change. They want to have impact. And yes, you have to be well funded to do that. People with $1 million can make bigger impact at a single moment than people who are just starting. It's just how have a bigger audience, have a bigger community. But people with millions of dollars aren't always acting in their zone of transformation.
Right.
It's not a guarantee. You get to choose into that and intentionally create the transformation for somebody else. That's the separation for me.
Ah, that just gave me goosebumps. That is so awesome. And I love how you light up when you talk about it. It's so cool.
This is what I do.
I would love to know what you would say to somebody who maybe has a service that they're selling or a product even maybe something they created, but isn't necessarily something that they think would change somebody's life, right? So I'm guessing you work with all kinds of people, right?
I do. I
So
do.
what would you say to somebody that says, well, I have this course, but it's not going to change anybody's life. Like, how would you handle that?
Okay, the flippant answer is, of course, it's going to change their life. Otherwise, why would you be doing it? That's the flippant answer. That's the easy, whatever.
Okay. All
Um,
right. Yeah.
so to actually dig into that,
Yeah.
consider for a second an ice cold beverage served in a glass bottle that when you pop the top, there's a certain noise to it, and you drink the bottle. You drink what's in it, and your life hasn't changed, except that it totally has. Like, it's not like I'm going to drink this liquid and suddenly everything's going to go my way. All my challenges are gone. My life is easier. My life is better. Everything goes faster, whatever it is. But in that moment, they have experienced something. They've heard the top. They felt the cold. They felt the liquid. They've smelled it. You don't have to change. You cannot change someone's life forever necessarily unless you focus on that moment.
Mm.
The course isn't necessarily, if you put up a 3 module, 16, transactional, and here's the exercises, here's the PDF, here's the part you read, here's the part you listen to, all those things. It's really, really great. And if you stop there, you have delivered information.
Right.
But if you take it for just a second, think, okay, how do they experience this? How do they feel about themselves when they are done? Of course you're changing their life. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
they just got to read this thing that came out of you that they went, I had never thought about it like that. Oh
Interesting.
my gosh, that's amazing. And once that smoke comes out of the battery, you cannot get that back in. You cannot unthink that. So you've had that moment. I think, again, we think in these great big broad strokes where we think that I'm going to sell you this $27 course or this $29,000 course, and your life is going to be somehow totally black and white different, like totally, here we are at a different page. It comes from little things. And it comes from that intentionality of how are you going to feel when we're done? It's not enough to be seen and heard. You have to be felt. You have to have an experience. So if you're trying to sell your course, stop for just a second. Your stuff is good. You know your stuff is good. Otherwise, you wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like I know my stuff. Think for just a second. Okay, the person who's going to read this, what do they need to feel about themselves when they're done? And I'm not talking with the whole course. So what do they need to do when they're done with this module? When they're done with this 15-minute training video? How do I want them to have felt in that 15 minutes? And your mindset completely shifts. And what comes out of you completely shifts. And you are changing lives.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. And it goes back to sort of what we were saying earlier. It is like, seeing it in somebody else is easier than seeing it in yourself. A lot of people might struggle with that, and think that they need this big movement in order to create change or, whatever
Right.
it is. And it's not, it can be in little things. I
It
love
can
that.
it can be in small things. I mean, think about the people who, like, somebody somewhere told Martin Luther King Jr. that he could do things differently. Somebody somewhere, offhand comment, well, it doesn't always have to be that way. Or, yeah, well, maybe it could change. It would have been something that small that got into his little head and just, okay, well, I don't know what to do with that yet. I'm going to put it on the shelf. I mean,
Right.
think about it, And so you never know. I think it's part of why I have a whole soapbox. I will not go on it right now, but doing the things just to do the things. We have a checklist. I'm going to just put up social media because check, now I've done my Monday social media.
Yeah.
Check. I did my course. I did my things. And without the intentionality of, well, how do I want this to land? How do I want people to experience this? Without thinking of those things before we create all the things, that's part of why we end up feeling generic. It's part of why we are so easily forgotten. It's part of why people dismiss us. It's part of why we blend in and get skipped over. Is we're showing up as generic and vague. But when we take that time to go, okay, but this could change somebody's thinking pattern. This could change somebody's afternoon.
Right.
Then let the rest of the ripple effect do its thing. But it really does have to start with how we're putting it out there, how we're creating it, why we are creating it. I mean, I had a coach once tell me, maybe this isn't for your client, maybe this is for your daughter. And after I got done sobbing about that, I mean, because she was like 2, I went, you're right. Like, everybody out there has this amazing opportunity. If they bother to stop by and pay me attention, they have become a client. They do not become a client when they pay me money. They become a client when they pay me attention, which means I have an opportunity to impact them from the very moment one. So how do I want that to come across? And how do I want to make sure that they go, oh, that's so Amber. I can feel her, and I can totally hear her saying that. It's a completely different experience for both you and them.
Yeah, and that's all brand, right? All
Correct.
back to brand.
All those layers, all those levels of complexity, that's your brand.
So for anyone listening who might be struggling with brand, what would you say would be, you kind of touched on it earlier, but just to go over it again, what would you say would be the 3 most important things when you're trying to figure out your brand?
I would say let's figure out which part of your brand you're trying to figure out. Because if you know what I mean, if it's I'm struggling with my logo, my font and colors, I would say ask yourself why do I want to create this? And not necessarily like the Simon Sinek, like what's your why, but kinda. But this is to what I guess another way of saying it is to what end? What's your point? And not in a callous way, but to what end? I'm going to create this logo to what end? It says what about me? It connects to my audience in what way? What calls them in? What says this is who I am? And it calls them in at the same time. And I think that's true about everything you create. Any of your graphics, any of your vocabulary, any of your gestures as I'm sitting over here talking with my hands. It all comes down to how does that say who I am and how does that call you in? So that it's not just flat, it's not just a mood board, it's not just a color palette. That's the start of it. It's like when people say, well, how do I use AI? It's a nice starting point. It gets you out of that white page scare, I have no idea where to start. Awesome. AI is a really great launching pad. Please don't copy and paste. I will totally kick your tushka if you just copy and paste what AI gave you, because it'll just be a pile of generic.
Right.
Your message will be generic, your visuals will be generic, and so it's generic plus generic, carry the generic, and it's just flat, and it's nothing. They can't feel you in it. So if you're just getting started, you're like, or you've been in business for 5 years and think, I don't think this is quite working the way it could. Because really that's where I look at that almost always. If somebody's like, I'm working really, really hard, I'm doing all the things. Why isn't this going faster? Why isn't this going further? Why am I struggling for every single client? That's very common. I have this thing and they come in and they love it and it's successful. And then I have to go back out and try to get more clients in. When you develop an experience, it's not a one-time thing, a transactional. So maybe that's the second thing. How do I make this not transactional? So how does this express me? How does this show who I am? How does this call them in? And how do I make this not transactional? Maybe those are the 3 kind of starter questions.
And by non-transactional, you mean how do I make it carry on through everything that I do? Is that kind of what you mean?
How do I make it carry on? How do I build a relationship out of this?
Okay.
It's not just, even if you're selling toothpaste, how do I make this so they want to buy this toothpaste always, always? How do they think of me every time they open up the toothpaste to brush their teeth? It sounds silly, but the people who are creating the toothpaste are like, I want them to smile and go, I'm so glad this is what I chose. And I'm going to make sure my kids use this. And I'm absolutely going to tell people, oh, I love this new toothpaste. Because we have those conversations. So carry on and make it non-transactional. It's not, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to buy whatever it is on whatever site. I'm going to take it home and I will never hear from them again. They will not know why I did it. I will not know what they did with it. It's about building relation. We talk about building relationships all the time and really connecting. And
Absolutely.
then we show up as transactional. And we don't mean to, but when it's, here's my stuff and I love it and this is cool and this is why I think it's cool, but we're not showing up in that, it's transaction.
That's so true. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what's that saying? Relationships are the currency of the wealthy. Isn't that?
The relationships are the air we breathe anymore. We we don't want, okay, let me share this, and because I
Yeah.
think it illustrates it pretty well.
Yeah, please.
I I love to travel. I don't do enough of it, especially over the last 3 or 4 years. It's been stunted. I'm getting back into it. And one of the places I love to visit the most is the Pacific Northwest. I love the moisture. I love the green. It is not Utah green, because Utah green is desert green. It's different.
Okay.
Love Oregon and Washington. And one of my favorite things to do with my family is we'll go up there and we'll do what we call urban hiking, which is I'm just going to walk the streets and just see what's out there, see the shops.
I love
Like, I
that.
just want to see the things. I want to try the food. I want to see the things. Well, one of the most recent times we went up, I guess it's been a few years, there was a little mom and pop sock shop, like just this little independent single room, tons of socks. I did not need socks, Anne Marie. I was not in the market for socks.
But let me
But one
guess.
of the, and they're cute enough and they're good quality. But what made me walk into the store was out front. It said, by the way, a percentage of these proceeds, here's the nonprofits we support. Here is the thing that we believe in so much. This is our way of correcting that damage. They supported women in crisis and children in trouble. And I'm like, that speaks to me like nobody's business. If
Mm.
I'd wanted socks, I'd have gone to Target. I'd have gone to some department and just kind of done it. I bought 10 pairs of socks. I sent them to friends across the country going, you have to experience a sock because I know what it stands for and what it's doing in the world. And I spent 3 and 4 times as much for a pair of socks as I would normally, maybe more,
Wow.
because I wasn't about the socks. It was about the people and it was about their vision and their values and their mission. When
Wow.
you can share that with your people, whether that's a nonprofit, whatever it is your value and your vision are, people are like, yeah, whatever it is you got, I'm in because me too. I so align with that. That speaks to me. That creates that resonates on a different level. I'm going to buy every damn pair of sock in the store. I'm going to
Yeah.
share it with everybody I know because this matters that much to me.
Yep.
That's their brand. That's their brand.
Your core values. Yeah.
It's, again, like I don't remember the name of the shop. I know I have their card someplace because I still have their socks. Um, but what I remember is what they stood for and how
Yep.
they made me feel when I did it. And I absolutely, what I will remember them for is not their sock. What
Right.
I'll remember them for is the change they're doing in the world, the good they're creating. So if your values aren't coming screaming through your brand, everything you're going to do is harder. Everything is going to be more of a struggle. You're going to attract those people that make you twitch instead of light you up. Like you could still get there probably maybe, but it's going to be really, really hard and it's going to take a lot longer and you're going to give up some. And it's not going to thrill you. Like doing
Oh,
things that are aligned with who you are just naturally do.
yeah. And life is too short to spend it on time that doesn't, or on
Oh,
something that doesn't light you up. I'm telling
you
you.
must have joy. You must have joy. You must be thrilled. I mean, and outsource the rest. Let
Outsource.
somebody else do it. Let somebody else do it. It's one of the things I think I learned the first couple of years in business is I thought, well, I do branding, I do marketing, so surely I can do, and I was trained as a graphic designer, so I could do that. That was easy. And I'm a really good graphic designer,
Yeah.
but I'm really good at
I
branding.
love that.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
graphic design is this whole thing, but so I thought, well, I can do web design. My people are needing web design. I could help with that. I can figure that out. Just no, I'd rather eat a bug. It is not my thing. If the more closely I know that this is what drives me forward and this is what lights me up and this is my vision, web design doesn't move my vision forward. It could move somebody else's vision forward. I
Mine.
should find that person. I will find you and say, awesome. Can you please help them with their
Yeah,
website? Because it's so not my thing. It's going to make me tired. The results are not going to be as good. They're not going to be as happy. Why
and
not let somebody else whose genius that is do that thing?
that's so true. I talk about this with a lot of people. So many people, especially a perfect example that you just said. So many people in my industry just want to do it themselves. Oh, I can do it myself. It's like, why? That's not what you do. Why do
Right.
you want to do
Right.
that? Yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
even if you take it out of the what I would consider woo that, ooh, it excites me. Let's look at your money. Is
yeah,
that really the best use of your time? Like how much do
yeah.
you make an hour? And you want to go and do that's going to take you 10 times as long. I remember figuring it out once, a lady who was doing business cards. She's like, I can just do this. I said, awesome. You let me know how that goes. And she came back a couple of weeks later. She's like, I just need to do it. I said, how much time did you spend? Like, just curiosity. About 13 and a half hours. Okay, but you make more than that, you know? Like
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
that's part of it is it would take a graphic designer 15 minutes to do that, maybe. And who they know all the things, they know the steps, they know the programs, they know all the things that make sense. They know how to make it not just look good, but work. Let them do that. And you go do that things that where you shine, where the
yeah.
people want you to be. Like you can make more impact and more income in that space. So stay, you've heard stay in your
Mhm.
lane.
Stay in your
Design
lane.
your
Yeah,
lane the way you want to. Make it whatever it is you want. Leave the rest. Like
yeah,
if I look at that from it dilutes your brand. If I want to be known for being brand strategist, if I try to dabble into web design, if I try to make funnel, oh my goodness, talk about that, not my thing. If I want to do tech, it dilutes my brand. Now people are like, I think she does this, but maybe
yeah.
this.
And
How
yeah, and it's
is
confusing,
the thing?
right?
It's very confusing.
Yeah, and I think
There's no
that's
win in that.
just a common misconception is that oh, we want to do everything. I can do everything, and it's like no, you just do one thing, and that's where you're
Yeah,
gonna make.
yeah, you
Yeah,
could, but should you?
yeah,
Do you
right,
really
right,
want to?
exactly. So on that same point, I kind of want to talk about how you feel about AI because you mentioned it earlier, so I kind of have an idea. And in branding and in funnel building, AI, some some people think that it can take over, and it absolutely can't because it's missing the brand. It's missing the human aspect of it in your messaging, in your branding, but yet there's so many programs that A can create logos, B can create funnel copy. So I'd love to hear your opinion on what's happening with AI.
Really?
Yes.
So, okay, here it is. AI can absolutely take over if you let it.
Mm,
If you want a world full of generic,
generic. Yeah.
if you want it to fall flat and get like it will get the job done, it will check off the box. And you won't feel anything and they won't feel anything and it'll just be a pile of bleh. It's not actually artificial intelligence. It is what's a nice word? There it's just puking it back
It's
up to you.
data. It's just
It's
data.
just data. It's taking your prompt and creating something based on everybody else's prompt. So it's a really great way to dilute your message. Is to type it into AI and go, I need 15 things that say this. Awesome. And now it will take all 15 of those things and anybody else can type in the same prompt and get the same. I think AI is one of those tools like a pen, like a computer, like a car to get you to the networking. I think it's a great tool like a stage is for your message. If you copy and paste it, you will be generic. It will fall so flat in comparison to who you are that you will do you and your customers a disservice.
Mm,
I think it just, if that's okay with you, I think those people that are okay with showing up as generic could be replaced. But it's why I say the experience with you is everything.
and yeah, and
That's what matters. AI
AI
can't do
can't
it.
replace that.
If you, I get that there is an expediency with that. I get that people who don't have large teams are like, I just need social media. I just need to get it out. If you are just checking the box, it is better for you and your brand to just not bother. That is my opinion about that. I can get into the details a little. It is better. Like, why dilute what you are doing with flat, generic, vague, oatmeal type stuff?
Yeah.
Take the prompts. And then the next step is, okay, Then how do I make this feel like me? Then the next step, how do I actually attract a new client? How do I actually reach my audience and make them feel something? Then you can create it. That's why I say if you copy and paste, I'll slap you. Take that and use that as, now I have some ideas. Okay, that helps. But then I actually get to create it. So that's why I think it will never replace you. It can never replace your service that you offer. I mean, I spoke to a woman. Nope, let me think. It may have even been on your podcast, Anne-Marie, who's like, you can create that funnel or whatever it is in 23 minutes. I'm like, awesome. So the tech is done.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
You and 27 billion other people have that funnel. So now how do you add it? How do you add yourself into that? How do you make it yours? How do you make it specific to what you're creating? And how do you make it feel different?
Yep. You have
The
to
stuff
add.
you do, Anne-Marie, you will never be replaced because working with you and the experience with you is free.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about AI.
Okay. I love that. I share the same exact opinion. And that's why I wanted to ask you about that, because like that software, there are more and more and more coming out. People are saying to me, oh, well, I can just type it in and there's a funnel. I'm like, okay, but like, is it what you would say?
It's single dimensional. It's
Yeah.
single dimensional and it's transactional.
Yeah.
And if that's
Right.
okay with you, awesome. Oh, it's not. If it's okay with you, then you should totally do that. But
Yeah.
I just don't think that's the way the world works. And I don't think that's what I know that's not what your audience wants. That's not what they're craving. They don't need more flat, generic stuff in their face. We're full of it.
Yeah.
Especially over the last few years, what we crave is connection, what we crave is community. And AI doesn't create that.
Yeah.
So figure out how to create that in your business.
So good. So good. Oh, Amber, we're coming to the end here, which is such a shame. But I have to ask, is there anything on the horizon for you? Anything new and exciting coming up?
Oh my goodness, the next 60 days are so incredible. I do have a workshop coming out. It's not published yet. It's not live yet. It's like a full day experience kind of a thing, and it's going to be amazing. But that's in the next 30 days.
Fun.
So there will be more information coming out about that. Yeah, it's all that juicy goodness that's been coming out.
Oh, now the suspense is in the air. You've created that suspense.
It really will be an opportunity for you to go, oh, that's how to make that easier. That's how to do that faster. And it all starts with you. It all is tapping into that legend within and just bringing it out. So
Oh,
that's coming
we
up.
didn't even talk about the legend within. Oh my goodness, we got so talking about everything else.
It's all good. There's more. There's
Yeah.
always more.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so we'll be looking forward for this thing that's coming out in 30 days. And do you have a free gift?
I do. I
Yes.
do. Because part of that is that whole awareness of, okay, if it's broken or if it's not working great, then how do I know where? So I will make sure there's a link below, but it's actually both an assessment and a score. So you can go, oh, if I answer these things, then I understand specifically, here's the tweaks in my brand that I need to make. So you understand where to get started, how you're lining up with the rest of the businesses that you're like, why do I have to work so hard to try to compete? You don't. But it's about figuring out where those little very specific aspects are that you're like, if I can focus more of my time here, the rest of this is good. So I will make sure there's an Ignite Your Business assessment and scoring that
Yes.
plus follow up of, so try this. So it really
Awesome.
is a booster to your business.
Awesome. I will put that. I'll make sure I have that for the show notes. And
Yes.
if people need to want to find you and are interested in possibly working with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. You can also email me, honestly, amber@yourbrandbydesign.com. Just send it over. I'm looking at my emails. So send it over and say, hey, let's figure this out. Or I heard you say this and you are high. Or I heard you say this and I will never be the same. Amber@yourbrandbydesign.com.
Okay, awesome. And then lastly, which you probably know because you've seen a couple episodes, I always fire off some random questions. So here we go. Number one,
Okay.
if you had the opportunity to go to space and walk on the moon, would you?
Absolutely. I would go to the moon. I would not go to Mars because there's no return trip. I would totally go to the moon. Absolutely.
Awesome.
There's new stuff up there.
Okay. All right. And then the second one, if you had the opportunity to have dinner with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh, There's a week worth of dinners here. Pink, the artist.
Pink.
She's
Oh, okay.
amazing. She is who she is. She includes her kids in everything she does. She is absolutely uncompromising about who she is. And I
I
think that
love
is
that.
fantastic.
Unapologetically herself.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yep.
Okay, and the third one I've changed, so it's new since maybe you've heard an episode. I love to know about successful people's morning routines because I think that your morning routine is so important. So tell me, what is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
The first thing I do is I do not grab my phone. I do not
Oh,
check my email. I think
interesting.
probably my morning routine is more about the things that I have cut out than it is the things that I have put in. I hug and connect with the people in my house. That includes my puppies.
Ah,
And I do not step into my office until I am darn good and ready, usually without shoes because shoes are terrible. Um, but I think it's about focusing. Before I step into my office, I remember why I'm doing it. And that's part of the hugging and connecting with the people in my space that remind me, okay, this is why I'm going to go do what I do.
oh, I love that. Yeah, that's great.
That is new. I like it. I like the twist.
What kind of puppies do you have? Did I ask you that
I
already?
have Aussie, no, I have Aussie Shepherds right now. I have a 9-year-old and a 1-year-old, and
Oh,
they're fabulous.
oh my God, they're my second favorite kind of dog. My first favorite is corgi
Oh,
because I have a corgi. I love
we've
corgis.
got corgi neighbors, so I get to have that cuteness and those great big ears and the hopping by
The low
proxy.
riders. Yeah, they're but I love Australian Shepherds too. The coloring is they're just such awesome dogs. So
They're
cool.
fabulous dogs.
Well,
They're wonderful.
if you're ever in Boston and if I'm ever in Utah, maybe we can have a doggy play date.
Please. Oh my goodness, let's have a doggy play date. We can totally do this. It's on.
All right, Amber, this has been awesome. Awesome, awesome. I feel so inspired and I just think you're so awesome. So thank you for coming on.
It's been an absolute thrill. You're welcome and thank you.